The Minnesota Vikings defeated the Green Bay Packers and advanced to 14-2 during the regular season. And now it is cemented Sunday Night Football versus the Detroit Lions to decide the fate of the number one seed in the NFC and the fate of the Minnesota Vikings going into the playoffs. This is from Yahoo Sports. NFL playoff scenarios. It says, the NFL schedule makers couldn't have dreamed it up any better. In the regular season Sunday night finale, a Vikings victory against the hosting Detroit Lions would deliver Minnesota the North Divisional title, the number one seed in the NFC, and home field advantage throughout the conference's postseason play. A defeat in Motown would lock the Vikings into the number 5 wildcard seed, which would put them on the road in round 1. Their opponents in this scenario would either be the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Los Angeles Rams, or Atlanta Falcons. So Sunday night's game is going to be massive for the Vikings because you don't want to have to go on the road and face a Rams team who you already lost to this season, or face a Baker Mayfield team where he's thrown for 39 touchdowns this season. To have home field advantage throughout the playoffs would be huge. And we'll talk about this game more as it continues to get closer and after, of course. But I want to discuss Sam Darnold because he is the topic that keeps on giving this time of year. He comes into the year, bridge guy, 1 year, $10 million, and now the conversation has become a debate because it is not an easy decision for the Minnesota Vikings anymore because he's not a bridge quarterback anymore. The Minnesota Vikings had a plan. He was the bridge guy. You drafted McCarthy to be the franchise, and it all made sense. It was a healthy plan. It made sense, but you don't write NFL plans in Sharpie. You just don't. You write them with an eraser. Huh? 1 second.
Huh?
You don't write them with an eraser. You write them with a pencil that has an eraser on the end of it because the Minnesota Vikings are shifting their plan. It is no longer going to be Darnold. It was nice to see you. All right, go somewhere else. Because what he has provided the Minnesota Vikings this season has been what the Vikings have been looking for and searching for a long time. Going back to forever ago. Going back to Tavares Jackson and Christian Ponder and Teddy Bridgewater. The Minnesota Vikings have been looking for a franchise quarterback to come in, take over the franchise, control this thing, take the reins, and dominate for years and years. They've been looking for it. They've borrowed Favre. They've borrowed Keenum. And now they've found it with Sam Darnold. And you look at this situation. You look at McCarthy and what he could provide. You look at what Darnold is doing right now. Darnold has thrown 35 touchdowns and 12 interceptions this season, which ranks 4th in the NFL this year. The only guys that have more passing touchdowns than Darnold this season are Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, and Baker Mayfield. That's the list. That's the list. Darnold has more passing touchdowns than Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Jaden Daniels, Jared Goff, Bo Nix, Aaron Rodgers, Matthew Stafford, CJ Stroud. Darnold has done everything and more that you want to see from an NFL franchise quarterback. And right now, the plan inside the Minnesota Vikings Performance Center in Eagan, TCO, is changing. It's changing because you cannot overlook what Darnold is doing this season. You know, maybe at the beginning of the year, it's like, okay, cool, great 5-0 start. He falls down to earth, falls flat on his face mid-season a little bit, isn't quite as consistent, doesn't have his rhythm, isn't looking as good, and just doesn't look like the same quarterback. But now he's found it. And what he is doing is repeatable. This is not some fluky stuff, because what he's doing is he is seeing the entire field. He is not just looking at Justin Jefferson and staring at him and trying to get him the football. He's looking to Addison and Hawkinson and Naylor and the running backs. Sam Darnold is doing things that franchise quarterbacks do. And this is not a Alex Smith to Patrick Mahomes situation. Sam Darnold is not Alex Smith. And J.J. McCarthy is not Patrick Mahomes. Darnold is heads and shoulders above Alex Smith. And J.J. McCarthy is not Patrick Mahomes. How do I know that, Tim? How do you know he's not Patrick Mahomes? Who is Patrick Mahomes? There's only one Patrick Mahomes. Lamar Jackson isn't even Patrick Mahomes. He's a good MVP quarterback, great MVP quarterback, but he's not Patrick Mahomes. So J.J. McCarthy is not Patrick Mahomes. And Sam Darnold is not Alex Smith. Darnold is way better. He's more lethal. He's more accurate. He can move. Alex Smith can move, but so can Darnold. And Darnold has the arm talent of a top 5 quarterback in the NFL. Alex Smith didn't have that. And that's why the Chiefs moved off him and put in Patrick Mahomes as QB1, despite Smith leading the Chiefs to the playoffs multiple times. What gets brought up in this conversation is Sam Darnold's salary cap hit on the Vikings organization and what you could do with the amount of money you would give Darnold to the rest of the Minnesota Vikings organization and roster. Because what you don't want to do is get cap strung by paying Darnold all this money, and then you lose all of your salary cap flexibility. And that was the plan. You get all the salary cap flexibility, you use it to spread the money around. J.J. McCarthy steps in seamlessly, and the Minnesota Vikings win and rattle off a bunch of Super Bowls in a row. But that's changing right in front of our eyes because, one, we don't know how healthy J.J. McCarthy even is right now. There's no way the Vikings revealed everything to us in their latest press conference a few months ago about McCarthy's knee. That's a scary situation. You're going to trust the future of your franchise with a rookie quarterback who's never played an NFL regular season snap. A guy coming off 2 knee procedures, a torn meniscus and a cleanup of the meniscus. And you're just going to send Sam Darnold to another organization? And you're going to trust that J.J. McCarthy can take it from here? Is McCarthy talented? Yes, he is. He was drafted top 10 for a reason. But Darnold is showing you everything you have looked for and more in a franchise quarterback. And we're not saying get rid of McCarthy. We're not saying trade him this offseason. But you have to give Darnold one more run with this Minnesota Vikings organization to prove whether it was a mirage or that this was something you really hold on to. Give him the 1-year franchise tag and run this thing back, because 35 touchdowns, 12 picks, 14-2 record, you've got to do it. And it's not like Darnold is just a passenger on the Viking ship. He's controlling the whole thing. He's the one that's getting Jefferson and Addison and Hawkinson going. He's the one that's moving the Vikings offense. He's not reliant on a elite level back like Saquon Barkley or an Adrian Peterson back in the day to carry the Vikings offense. Darnold is the captain. He's not the passenger on this freight train. He is the beast that is stirring the drink, and he is doing everything for the Minnesota Vikings offense right now. And he is making this thing go. Now, going back to the salary cap situation, the free agents you could sign with the amount of money you would give Darnold. And, there's that drop-off. How far is the drop-off from Darnold to McCarthy? And if you add these free agents, does that, equal the same level play? You got a guy in a rookie quarterback contract. All those things are attractive things. And especially you look at the Vikings free agency class this past offseason. Cashman, Grenard, Van Ginkel, Gilmore, Griffin, all defensive guys that have added so much to the organization. But you bring in a DJ Reed or you bring in some cornerback from another team this offseason. You pay him all the money that he's going to want, whatever that looks like. There's no guarantee that he's going to come in and be the superstar cornerback that he was on his previous team. For the Vikings, you see it all the time in the NFL, where guys are superstars other places, they come to another team, and then they stink. There are tons and tons of free agency busts every year. And there's no guaranteeing that just because you let Darnold walk and you use his money to pay a cornerback or a safety or whatever it is, that you're going to be just as good next year because you use the free agency money to add depth and add players in free agency. So it's not like there's this guarantee that you're going to bring in these valuable players with Darnold's contract when Darnold's contract is right there, or his play is right there, and he's showing the entire world that this guy can play. And Darnold is loved within the Vikings locker room. Did you see the video following the Vikings win versus the Packers? If you hadn't, watch it right now. You think that's a guy that wants to leave after being in a situation like the Jets and the Panthers for the first 5-6 years of his career? He wants to stay. And could he get a bigger contract somewhere else? Yes, I'm sure he could. But the Vikings and Darnold should agree to mutually sign a 2 to 3 year contract extension or whatever the case may be, and make something happen. I guess there's the possibility that Darnold just wants to splash this offseason and go to another football team, maybe the 49ers, and make as much money as he can there as he would anywhere else. But the more I let this situation play out, and the more I see this situation play out, the Minnesota Vikings and Sam Darnold should agree this offseason to run this thing back. How can you not? With Brett Favre, 2009, we all wanted to run it back. Darnold is outperforming Favre in 2009. How can you not run this back? How can you not let this thing play out? The Minnesota Vikings organization had a plan, and it was healthy to have a plan. But this plan's a changing, and it should, because of what Darnold has presented and provided the Minnesota Vikings this season. Thank you for watching, and thank you for listening. Thanks for going on this journey with me. Hit that subscribe button wherever you are watching, or you're watching on YouTube. But hit that subscribe button wherever you're listening. And I appreciate you making this podcast a part of your day.